Shalom, hello, and welcome to this side tangent video. I'm making this video to address Hebrewisraelism because he has made several claims and statements that aren't sitting right with me and feel hypocritical. At first, everything was fine. He said that he was going to do a paper on my videos. All I told him was to not misrepresent me, and he claimed he wouldn't. But then I put out more videos. As I began to put out more videos, I began to see and notice something. In different videos, he would make a claim that I didn't say. I would reply to his comment with a timestamp correcting his error. Then he'll create a whole new post, not even continuing the thread. And in the new post, he would even twist my words even more. He would also bring up information that I've never covered in my videos. Next thing I knew, he was saying that I'm trying to discredit Haplogroup J as being Semitic. But I thought to myself, if he had seen some of my earliest videos, then he would know I already covered that Haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic. So by default, that means Haplogroup J wouldn't be Semitic in origin. But after I would see other comments of him saying that I don't like the Natufian model, him saying that he doesn't like the Natufian model. Again, I asked myself, does he know why, I talk about the Natufian model? Or better yet, does he know why I say that Natufians are the ancestors of Semites? Because I'm just quoting what the scientists are saying. I'm not just, making this up. Therefore, I wonder if he even knows that I have other models other than just the Natufian one, all of which are, backed up by academia and covered in older videos. Anything I say has a source to back it up. So now I'm really wondering, has he actually seen my videos? And does he know that I'm using academia to back up what I'm saying and that I'm not just making things up? Some of his comments seem to imply that, I'm just creating everything out of thin air with no references to back up my claims, which, all I do is read sources on this channel. After all, if you're creating a report on my position, then you should at least know my position and the sources that I use. So I asked him if he's seen, all my content, and does he know my position? Then he literally says he hasn't seen all my videos, and he can't see all my videos because he's watching a bunch of other people's videos. And, he tried to break down my position, and it was choppy at best. And then out of nowhere, when I ask him this question, he gets all personal and stuff. With that being said, how can you make a report on someone if you don't fully understand their position and why they believe in that position based on the sources they provided? Furthermore, how can you make a report on someone if you're taking things personally? At that point, you're being biased, and that's not how peer review works. But then I remember him saying that he would, believe that Jacob, the biblical Jacob, was Haplogroup J, even if it turned out that he, Hebrewisraelism, was Haplogroup E. But also, he left a comment literally saying that his goal is to do his best to debunk all of my information. And that right there is biased. And that is not how peer review works. You're already coming with emotion and an agenda and ready to debunk people without fully hearing them out or fully looking at their information. Yet you claim you won't misrepresent my information. But, you have to debunk my claims. And the comments you keep leaving are either hypocritical or they're misrepresenting me. Furthermore, you don't even know my full position because you haven't seen all my videos. That's why I'm going to use this video to give a slight recap of my beliefs. This summary won't have everything, but it will cover some of my older content. But I'm also making this video to show you that I do in fact have sources and science to back up what I'm saying. I'm not just making claims out of the wind. I'm actually using academia because your comments makes it seem like I'm just saying things with no sources to back it up. Therefore, I'm going to back up everything I say with a reference. Furthermore, I will be responding to the comments left in this video. With that being said, let's begin with the video. But before I start the video, I want to make this clear. Hebrewisraelism. Stop creating new posts every time people respond to you. You're supposed to continue the thread, not make an entirely new post. I know you claim that YouTube is somehow stopping your channel from commenting under your own post, but honestly, I don't really think that makes sense. I honestly think you're doing this so everyone can see each one of your posts. Stop that. If you're really having issues with YouTube, then create a new account for commenting, but stop making new posts every time someone replies to you. I only allow up to 3 new posts for each video. Don't go over 3. But before I start the video, I want to make this clear as well. If you truly want to make a good report, then you should know my position. Also, you should have patience and wait for my information to come out because I'm not even fully done explaining my points. When people write peer-reviewed papers, they actually have to wait for the other person to fully make their report. They have to fully express what they're saying. And then other people do a peer-reviewed paper on it. And I'm not even, close to being finished. More videos are on the way, new videos every week. And now we actually begin with the video. So he says in this comment, well done. You finally came out and said it. Instead of being around bush, I think he meant to say beating around the bush, but instead of beating around bush as you've been doing in the past few videos, smiley face emoji. So for a while, Hebrewisraelism has been wanting me to basically say that Haplogroup J is Japheth, even though at the same time he doesn't want me to say that Haplogroup J is Japheth. It's kind of weird, but now when he said that I'm beating around the bush, that part specifically, made me wonder, had he seen my older videos? So I plainly asked him, has he seen my older content? I said, do you know my position? Have you seen my videos? Some of the things you're saying make me feel like you haven't seen all my videos. Yes or no? And then, question emoji. Now, the reason I asked the question was because if he had seen my older content where I detail over and over and over again, 1, the origins of Afroasiatics, 2, the origins of Semites, 3, the origins of Haplogroup E, and why Haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic. These videos make it clear when it comes to my beliefs backed up by academic papers on the origins of haplogroups and Proto-Semites, the populations, and them having Haplogroup E. Here is all my playlists that go back at least like 3 months ago that detail all this information. Here is the origins of Afroasiatics, the origins of Semites, from Shem to Eber to Abraham, the genotype and phenotype of Proto-Semites. Like, it's all laid out here. If you just watch these videos, you kind of would have already known what my position is on Semites haplogroup and their genetic makeup and their phenotype and everything. I made sure I made everything extensively clear. And I also have other playlists dealing with Afroasiatic languages, Semitic languages, and Haplogroup E. So, I made sure I laid everything out because I try to be as clear as possible with people. So by default, I thought it would be obvious that I wouldn't see any other haplogroup as being Proto-Semitic or Shem. I explained in those past videos as well that haplogroup A and B was Ham. Therefore, CF lineages would have to be the default for Japheth. Like I said, I already had videos saying E was Shem, or I already had a video saying that A and B was Ham. What's left in the phylogenetic tree, it's CF lineages, that's Japheth. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. But here is his response to my question. So he says, Ivri, do you know my position? Well, he kind of repeated what I said because he's explaining his response by having to retype what I said because he doesn't continue a thread. That's what I mean by he needs to. You need to continue a thread, Hebrewisraelism, and then you don't have to like copy and paste what I say. You'd have to create a whole new post. But that's what I said, and then he says down here, I have not seen all your videos, but I have more than enough information to make my determination on your position. So right off the bat, you admit to not watching all my videos, and I thank you, for your honesty, by the way. However, if that's the case, then I don't understand how you have more than enough information to make a determination on my position. Your following statements actually prove you're either one, haven't been paying much attention to even my latest videos, and two, you're either purposely like misrepresenting me. Let me explain, with the rest of your comment. So you say, I have not seen all your videos, but I have seen more than enough information to make my determination on your position. This is from watching many of your videos. One, you are part of YAP gang. By the way, YAP is a genetic marker that all DE descendants have. People with the haplogroup D or E, they have the positive YAP marker. But he says you are part of YAP gang, whose collective position is that D and E are Semitic haplogroups, while J is a Japhetic haplogroup. I would say that part is correct. If your video, in your videos on J, you repeatedly associate J with Northern Indo-Europeans like the corded wire culture. That part right there is absolutely not true. Right? You're right. I do believe that haplogroup DE would represent Shem. But when did I ever say that the corded wire culture was haplogroup J? I don't ever remember making such a statement. Nor do I say that haplogroup J was Northern Indo-Europeans or Northern Europeans specifically. If I've ever said haplogroup J is Northern European corded wire, then leave a timestamp. But I'm pretty sure that I've said that Northern Europeans in the corded wire was haplogroup I. I remember saying that it was Proto-Germanic. That's what I remember, but I don't remember saying that Northern Europeans or corded wire culture or Proto-Germans were J. I remember saying that they're I. Now, I did say that haplogroup J would have been among the Yamnaya culture, and you brought this up before. And I left a timestamp where I literally said that the majority of the Yamnaya were haplogroup R, but other Eurasian subclades would have been among the Yamnaya like haplogroup J. I never said that all of the Yamnaya were J markers. I just said that J markers would have been among them, but the majority were R markers. And this is the time you said that. You said, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but you seem to be subtly implying that the Yamnaya were haplogroup J. And I left the timestamp right here, 2052 of Caucasus hunter-gatherers and Yamnaya culture, and I left the video. And it's weird because he posted this comment in the Yamnaya culture video, in which I don't really bring up Haplogroup J that much, I don't think, in this video. But if I did, it might be in the portion where I talk about Proto-Indo-Europeans. But in this video specifically, I actually do go into the, a lot of the haplogroups of the Yamnaya culture and the Caucasus hunter-gatherers in this section, where I specifically say that the majority are R and that there would have been some J among them. So I don't know why he's like grabbing, making this comment in this video of the Yamnaya culture, Proto-Indo-Europeans. This comment probably should have been in this video, but I can see why he didn't put it in this video because I literally have the correct timestamp. But then he says in Haplogroup J and Indo-Europeans, Greeks, Armenians, Iranians, and Indo-Aryans, he says, you make that very clear by implication by associating J with Indo-Europeans and with people who are Japhetic. And again, when it comes to this comment, I'm not associating J with Indo-Europeans. I'm literally reading papers that say Indo-Europeans, there are Indo-European groups with haplogroup J. Like, that's just a fact. I mean, I don't know if he's aware or unaware of the fact that Indo-Europeans can have haplogroup J, but that's what the papers are saying. So when it comes to that comment, it feels like you're implying that I'm lying. So I'll show you again, just in case you and others didn't see in the video, the Yamnaya Proto-Indo-Europeans, or early Europeans, Europeans, did have haplogroup J among them. I literally, read papers saying this. So this is from Eupedia, Yamnaya Culture, titled Yamnaya Culture. And it reads, genetic analysis of Yamnayan genomes conducted by Allentoff in 2015 and Heck at 2015 revealed that Yamnayans were a blend of three ancestral populations. The dominant elements, 55% to 85%, was the Mesolithic Eastern hunter-gatherers, EHG, associated with Y haplogroups R1A and R1B. I read this exact source in the past. Then came the Caucasus hunter-gatherers, CHG, admixture, making up 15 through 25% of their genomes. And by the way, the actual paper says it's really about half of their genomes. Half of the Yamnaya genomes is Caucasus hunter-gatherer, not 15 to 25%. But anyways, it says this admixture is mainly associated with Y haplogroup J, and indeed, one J star sample was found in Mesolithic Russia. It has been confirmed by ancient DNA that J2b was found among Neolithic farmers from East Transcaucasus, in this case northwest Iran, and there is convincing evidence that these J2b farmers crossed the Caucasus to settle in the Volga-Ural region during the early Neolithic. And in the past brought up all the samples that showed it, but I'm just going to show you the Mesolithic Russian one just as an example. So here's the J1 Mesolithic age sample from Russia, as you can see. And there's other samples too that I can show y'all, but I'm not going to show you all of them because they're my older videos. But I just brought up what the papers said. And here's another paper called How Eurasia Was Born, and it says, while early Indo-Europeans who originally crossed from Anatolia in the early Bronze Age were most likely represented by various J2 subclades. Let me read that again. While early Indo-Europeans who originally crossed from Anatolia in the Bronze Age were most likely represented by various J2 subclades. So yes, early Indo-Europeans had J2 subclades. Genetic data suggests that as soon as they reached Central Europe, they assimilated large masses of the native population, and from then on, the rest of their expansion were characterized by more recently formed subclades of the haplogroups characteristic to the native population. And I read this source as well in older videos. So, there is data that does say haplogroup J is found with early Europeans, but I've never said corded wire culture. You can't get mad at me, for reading the evidence. Furthermore, this is why I asked you, don't misrepresent me. And you said that you will not misrepresent me. But you're literally doing that now. I have no reason to misrepresent anyone's position. That's what you said. You have no reason to misrepresent anyone's position. But you're already misrepresenting me. There is data that says haplogroup J is found with early Europeans, but I've never said corded wire culture. You can get mad at the scientists, but you can't get mad at me for reading what the papers say. But now let's return back to the original, message you sent. So skipping on down, reading what's in blue, you say number 3. When you quote material from Hebrewisraelism on J, you don't show the part of the page where it calls J a Semitic haplogroup. You said I don't, show parts of the page that say haplogroup J is Semitic. You also brought this up in the past as well, in past comments. You said, Hebrewisraelism says J1-P58 is Semitic, but you continue to insist that it is Japhetic. How do you use a source to make your claims, but then end up contradicting your own source with your conclusions? I'm confused. Well, by the time, this video comes out, I have already quoted that paper, but this is something I want to make clear to everyone. Respectfully, please do not rush me to cover information. Do not assume that I haven't read the genetic papers. I will get to them in due time, but I'm taking my time with everything I say in order to not confuse people. The reason I didn't quote the paper back then is because I needed to explain who haplogroup J was as a whole. The only haplogroup J subclade that is considered Semitic is J-P58. Everything that isn't J-P58 really isn't considered Semitic. This is from Hebrewisraelism, that very source that he was saying. J-P58 is by far the most widespread subclade of J1. It is a typically Semitic haplogroup, making up most of the population of the Arabian Peninsula, where it accounts for approximately 40 to 75% of male lineages. So J1-P58 is the only one that's considered to be Semitic. J-P58 is a subclade. It's only one subclade of J1, because J1 has other, subclades as well. So this single subclade and everything under it is considered to be Semitic. But all these other subclades outside of J-P58 isn't considered Semitic. Also, don't forget, you have J2. So all the subclades of J1 and then the entire tree of J2 is not considered Semitic. Only this little branch, P58, is considered Semitic. I can hardly see that as being, the origin of Semites. I can hardly see that as being, Shem or Proto-Semitic, because why would only this one subclade out of an entire haplogroup be Semitic? Unless this one subclade was a group of people who adopted the Semitic language. Now that would make sense. And all these other branches of J speak different languages like Indo-European or Caucasian, etc. So the article literally says that J-P58 is considered Semitic. That's the only branch of the entire tree of haplogroup J. How was I going to explain why one branch of haplogroup J is Semitic? At the time, I was just now entering into the discussion of haplogroup J. Word of advice: Do not rush me to cover things, and do not assume I have not read things, nor assume, I'm purposely hiding things. I am trying to take my time to break down my information because I don't want to overload people. Now, returning back to the article, it literally says that people with J-P58 aren't even Semitic in origin, that they adopted Semitic from haplogroup E. My question to you would be, did you know that part of the article as well? Or that many scientists have said this for years? Because in that same article where he says, J is Semitic, it literally says this. This is EUpedia, Haplogroup J1. Is J1-P58 the main Arabic paternal lineage? Looking at the map of J1-P58, it is easy to assume that P58 is a marker of Arabic ancestry because it reaches its maximum frequency in and around the Arabian Peninsula. That would be an oversimplification. It is important to make a clear distinction between people who speak Arabic and those who are genetically Arabic. These are two completely different things. For comparison, people who speak languages descended from Latin, such as French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Romanian, are not necessarily descended from the ancient Romans of the Latium. Even those who do may not have more than a tiny fraction of their genome, which was inherited from actual Roman ancestors. This is why most Romance language speakers today cannot be considered as genetically Roman. Most present-day Arabic speakers outside the Arabian Peninsula are likewise only very partially, or not all, Arabic genetically. In the northern half of the Middle East, most of the people who call themselves Arabs of today are in fact mainly descendants of other historic peoples, such as the Phoenicians, the Assyrians, Babylonians, and even the Hurrians. And the Hurrians are very influential people in the ancient Near East. We'll touch on the Hurrians very soon because they really shaped the Near East, and they're an extremely important people to understand and know about and learn about. And continuing, it says, most of these peoples were predominantly J2, with many minority haplogroups E1b1b, G, J1, L, Q, R1a, R1b, and T. The other subclades of J1 cannot be considered to be the paternal descendants of first Arabic speakers. Let me read that again. The other subclades of J1 cannot be considered to be the paternal descendants of first speakers of Arabic. So the other subclades cannot be considered the first speakers of Arabic. The other J1 lineages were Arabicized alongside other haplogroups like J2 and Q1b, etc. So J1 lineages were Arabicized. They were not Arab originally, they were something else, and then they came to the Arab culture and language. Likewise, J1-P58, E-M34, it is also shared with their Semitic cousins, the Jews. Haplogroup E1b1b is considered the prime candidate for the origin and dispersal of Afro-Asiatic languages across northern and eastern Africa and Southwest Asia. The Semitic languages appear to have originated within a subclade of the M34 branch of E1b1b. By the way, the same website also says that haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic, which is why I believe Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are haplogroup E. The same website literally says this: E-M34 is the main Middle Eastern variety of E1b1b and is thought to have arrived with the Proto-Semitic people in the late Copper to early Bronze Age. So when you said earlier that the article said that haplogroup J is Semitic, no, J-P58 is Semitic, but even that branch of Semitic adopted Semitic from haplogroup E, the originators of Semitic, the Proto-Semites. So Proto-Semitic, like I just said, over here, Proto-Semitic like people. And then you get to West Semitic, to Central Semitic, to Northwest Semitic, to Canaanite, to Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew, Hebrew people, they go all the way back to Proto-Semitic people who would have had haplogroup E. Like I said before, I look at the papers and I follow the data. But anyways, that's why I had to explain who Haplogroup J was at first before I got to JP58. JP58 is a branch of Haplogroup J, and that one branch has Semitic speakers. But originally, their ancestors weren't Semitic speakers. Originally, JP58 people spoke some other type of language, whether it's Indo-European or Caucasian or whatever. JP58 adopted Semitic language and culture from haplogroup E. Haplogroup J isn't Semitic in origin. Haplogroup E is Semitic in origin. It's simple as that. Now returning back to what you said. So now I'm on this side of the paper, or the page, because this is a continuation. Your disclaimers are irrelevant to this conversation because many Israelites who run with your teachings on haplogroup E do not consider people with J to be legit Israelites because they have the wrong haplogroup and are not bloodline Israelites. I am, by the way, technically you'll be doing the exact same thing if you're going to say that J is Semitic, then you'll basically be J is Semitic and J is Israelite. You'll basically saying every other, Jewish person with E markers or R markers or G markers or T markers aren't bloodline Israelites either. So it's literally you will literally be doing the same thing, to push J as the line of Shem and as the line of Israel, and E, R, T, G aren't the direct bloodline of Shem. So you're doing the same thing. But anyways, am I supposed to support your teachings because of your disclaimers? I'm confused. To me, an incorrect teaching is like someone producing an axe that anyone can pick up and use. By the way, I never asked for your support. Again, my original question is literally right here. Do you know my position? Have you seen all my videos? Some of the things you're saying make me feel like you haven't seen all my videos, yes or no. So I never asked you for you to support me or to support my teachings. So again, that's part of the emotional stuff that I'm assuming that is coming out with some of the things that he's saying, because I never even asked of that. But also he says, therefore, at the end of the day, I see you as a producer of axes, whether or not you agree with how they are being used, and regardless of your own personal opinions. Again, that is just more type of an emotional response, diverting from my original, question. Now, this extra stuff you added has nothing to do with my original question. Do you know my position? Do you know my position? And have you watched all my videos? And I can't help but, all right. So here's the thing. I can't help what other grown men and grown women do with these free and in the public domain academic papers that have been out for years. Let me break this down what I just said. 1, I cannot control what other adults do or say. 2, these papers are free to the public. They're in the public domain. And 3, these papers have been out for a very long time, for years, long before my YouTube channel existed. So to even assume or imply that people are getting their information from my channel, dude, these papers and information has been out before my channel existed. Like come on. Also, I never asked for your support of my teachings, and I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't know why you even like added that in your comment. But with all that being said, I can tell BHI with a quickness. I can tell Black Hebrew Israelites with a quickness that Jews, that Jewish people of all colors, of all phenotypes, of all backgrounds have haplogroup E. I do this all the time. I've even gotten backlash from BHI when I say that Jews have haplogroup E, whether they're Ashkenazi or Sephardi or Yemeni or Mizrahi and various others. I'm even friends with Jews. Actually, I have friends with Jews with both E markers and J markers. But I know Jews, Karaite Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, Lithuanian Jews, Yemeni Jews, and Sephardic Jews with haplogroup E. Haplogroup E is actually the second highest haplogroup among Jewish people, and I recognize that. I see that, and that's in the papers. I agree with that. And I've said many times in my older videos, I said this exact same thing in older videos. That's why you need to watch them, because then you would know my position. But I'll cover it again for everyone. All right, so E-M215 and E-M35 are quite common among Afro-Asiatic speakers. The linguistic group and carriers of E-M35 lineage, with a high probability to have arisen and dispersed together from the Afro-Asiatic homeland. Amongst populations with an Afro-Asiatic speaking history, a significant portion of Jewish male lineages are E-M35. Let me read that again. A significant portion of Jewish male lineages are E-M35. Haplogroup E-M35, which accounts for approximately 18 to 20% of Ashkenazi and 8.6% of 8.6% to 30% of Sephardi Y chromosomes, appears to be one of the major founding lineages of the Jewish population. Let me repeat that again. Haplogroup E appears to be one of the major founding lineages of the Jewish population. In this paper, Why DNA Research Studies of Rabbinical Lineages and Their Importance to Jewish Genealogy. This is, I guess I'll just read it. I'm going to read in yellow. The Laura rabbinical lineage has one of the oldest. The Laura rabbinical lineage has one of the oldest family trees in the world, claiming to trace back at least to King David, born circa 1037 BCE. The predicted haplogroup to which the two peregrine Laura descendants belong is E-M35. The confirmed haplogroup is awaiting the results of a big Y700 test. The previous nomenclature of this haplogroup, E1B1B1, was cited for Laura's descendants of rabbinical Jurachel Laura. The 95% probability prediction for the TMRCA is within 8 generations. So this rabbinical family, the Laura rabbinical family, has one of the oldest, family trees, and they trace their lineage back to King David, and even they have haplogroup E. Now let's deal with the Levites, people who claim to descend from the biblical Levi, the priestly Kohen lineage from the tribe of Levi. The biggest and most important Samaritan family, the Kohen family, tradition, tribe of Levi, was found to belong to haplogroup E. So we have what? We have everyday Jews, everyday Israelites with haplogroup E, whether they're Ashkenazi or Sephardi. We have specifically a person who claims to descend from King David, tribe of Judah, with haplogroup E. We have someone from the tribe of Levi, haplogroup E. And here are Levite Samaritans. They have 100% haplogroup E, 0% haplogroup J. And then also other Semitic populations like Arabs in Egypt, Arabs in Palestine, Arabs in the Jordan, with around, 30 to 60% of haplogroup E. Here are the references, by the way. So, also, I'm just going to read this paper, but I'm going to read what's in yellow and red starting right here. According to the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, ISOGG, and National Geographic's Genographic Project, E1B1B1 may have arisen instead in the Near East or the Middle East and then expanded into the Mediterranean with the spread of agriculture. Haplogroup E-M35, which accounts for approximately 18 to 20% of Ashkenazi and 8.6% of Sephardi, 8.6% to 30% of Sephardi Y chromosomes, appears to be one of the major founding lineages of the Jewish population. It is the most prevalent haplogroup among the Jewish population outside of haplogroup J. Like I said, I think E might be like the second or third highest haplogroup among the Jews. Samaritan communities have traditions of descending from the tribe of Levi, suggesting that the E1B1B1 men claiming to be Levites may have existed in Israel before the diaspora of 70 AD. And I just read that as well earlier. So now I'm going to cover some of the other comments that you've left behind in different videos, because I feel like you're thinking that I'm making things up when I say that that haplogroup E is Shem. But I guess it's because you haven't seen my older videos. I'm going to just give you the benefit of the doubt. Well, I actually kind of admitted it. But anyways, I'm going to show you all the sources I use, or some of the sources I use to come when I came to those conclusions of haplogroup E being Shem. But like I said, I'm only going to use some of the sources because I have a ton of sources, but I don't want to make this video too long, because if you look at my older videos, they're like 2 hours, 3 hours long. So I'm only going to cover a few. So let's begin. You say, this is to discredit J as being a Semitic haplogroup. This is to discredit J as being a Semitic haplogroup. You left that comment in a video. I even give you a timestamp where I kind of corrected. But haplogroup J is not Semitic in origin. Just going to plainly say it. Haplogroup J is not Semitic in origin. Haplogroup E is Proto-Afro-Asiatic. So I'm not necessarily discrediting haplogroup J as being Semitic. It's the scientists who are saying haplogroup J isn't Semitic. This is from Y chromosome E haplogroups, their distribution and implication to the origin of Afro-Asiatic languages and pastoralism, and it reads, the Proto-Afro-Asiatic group carrying the E-P2 mutation may have appeared at this point in time and subsequently gave rise to the different major population groups, including current speakers of Afro-Asiatic languages and pastoralist populations. This is from EUpedia, haplogroup E1B1B. Haplogroup E1B1B, formerly known as E3B, represents the last major direct migration from Africa into Europe. E1B1B lineages are closely linked to the diffusion of Afro-Asiatic languages. This is from In Hot Pursuit of Language and Prehistory. Most of the Afro-Asiatic speakers shared the lineage defined by Yap descendants called PN2/M215/M35. And Yap, is basically people who have haplogroup D and E were considered Yap positive. Everyone who doesn't have haplogroup D or E or Yap negative, for some reason, D and E lineages develop this unique mutation in them. And the scientists call it Yap, which is very interesting. I think that's Shem. But anyways, this is why I believe Shem, Abraham, and the Israelites are haplogroup E. Shem is the father of Semites. Semites are Afro-Asiatic or Afro-San people. The Israelites are Afro-Asiatic, Afro-San Semites. Semitic. Semitic, a major branch of the Afro-Asiatic language family. Afrosan and Semitic are semantically related. You can use Afrosan instead a noun Semitic. So let me read that again. Afrosan and Semitic are semantically related. You can use Afrosan instead a noun Semitic. Now, what's Afrosan? Afrosan, a large a large family of related languages spoken both in Asia and Africa. Semitic and Afrosan are semantically related. In some cases, you can replace term Semitic with Afrosan. These nouns are similar. So, Semitic, Afrosan, basically the same thing. The Israelites were a confederation of Iron Age Semitic-speaking tribes of the ancient Near East. Hebrew people are mostly taken as synonymous with the Semitic-speaking Israelites. So I'm not discrediting J as being Semitic. Science discredits Haplogroup J as being Semitic in origin. I'm just following what the scientists say. Haplogroup E is Afroasiatic / Proto-Semitic, and Haplogroup J adopted Semitic from Haplogroup E. This is from Haplogroup F-M89 from Familypedia, and it reads, however, certain subclades of Haplogroup E, which commonly occurs among all modern populations of Africa, are also closely associated with the distribution of Afroasiatic languages, both within Africa and in Southwest Asia, which many scholars have taken to support the hypothesis of a Northeast African origin of the Afroasiatic languages and subsequent colonization of Southwest Asia by haplogroup E3b bearing Proto-Semites. So Proto-Semites would have had haplogroup E. Under the scenario of an African origin of Afroasiatic languages, the occurrence of Eurasian Y chromosome haplogroups J, K, and R among Afroasiatic speaking populations of North Africa and East Africa would imply Eurasian immigration or gene flow into North Africa or into Northern Africa, accompanied by the loss of the Eurasian ancestral language and assimilation into the indigenous Afroasiatic cultures. And let me repeat that again. Accompanied by the loss of the Eurasian's ancestral language and assimilation into the indigenous Afroasiatic cultures. So let's put all this together. Proto-Semites would have had haplogroup E, and then other Eurasian lineages like J, K, and R would have lost their ancestral Eurasian language and they would have assimilated into indigenous Afroasiatic cultures. This is why I say haplogroup J and R and all those other haplogroups in the Middle East that speak Afroasiatic languages, they adopted it from haplogroup E, which were the originators of Afroasiatic and Proto-Semitic languages. They assimilated into indigenous Afroasiatic culture, but originally they spoke a Eurasian language. That's what I mean. And more studies say this. This is from Genetics, Egypt, and History, interpreting geographical patterns of Y chromosome variation. And it reads, it can be postulated that select M35 carriers, speakers from Africa of a stage of ancestral Semitic, pre-Proto-Semitic, entered the Near East, where indigenous peoples adopted it. So other people adopted Proto-Semitic from the Proto-Semites who were haplogroup E, and via ongoing language shift and population growth eventually became innumerably greater than the original speakers who were haplogroup E, the original speakers of the ancestor. So other peoples adopted the Semitic language from haplogroup E, and I guess population boom, they became greater in number. That's why you see a lot of J markers speaking Semitic languages. But originally, Semitic languages originated with haplogroup E. Here's another paper that literally says the same thing. This is from this book, actually, The Genetics of African Populations in Health and Disease. And it reads, for example, Underhill, 2000 study, state that the V38/M35 lineage was carried into the Near East from Africa in the Mesolithic. This V38/M35 in Africa corresponds to the TAQI49AFV. It is far more likely that pre-Proto-Semitic speakers went into the Near East at this time, where Semitic languages have long since dominated. So, Proto-Semites had haplogroup E, V38, and M35. But the predominant haplotypes in most Semitic-speaking populations are variants 7 and 8 in the TAQI49AF system, which are equivalent to M89 associated lineages. So basically, variants 7 and 8 are descendants of FM89 lineages. And continuing, it says, the most parsimonious explanation is that ancestral Semitic was adopted by those bearing haplotypes 7 and 8, and that would include haplogroup J. Haplogroup J would be part of the 7 and 8 haplotypes of the FM89 lineages, and the ancestral Semites would have had haplogroup E. And ancestral Semites speaking Semitic languages, their language was adopted by FM89 lineages, such as haplogroup J. And this book says the same thing. In Hot Pursuit of Language and Prehistory, the presence of Semitic in the Near East might be explained as follows. Early pre-Proto-Semitic speakers would have migrated into Syro-Palestine before the Neolithic, being taken by their M35 bearers, specifically M35/78, and adopted by populations bearing M89 lineages. Again, the original speakers of Semitic were haplogroup E, and the Semitic language was adopted by M89 lineages. Who is M89? Haplogroup F, also known as FM89, and previously as haplogroup FT, is a very common Y chromosome haplogroup. The clade and its subclades constitute over 90% of paternal lineages outside of Africa. And that's why I have a hard time seeing haplogroup J as being part of, being Shem, is because if J is Shem, then you technically have to make F Shem, and at that point you have to make 90% of the world's population Shem, and I think that's highly unlikely, since 90% of the world's population isn't even Afro-Asiatic speakers, but haplogroup E is literally the birth man of Afro-Asiatic and Proto-Semitic. So it makes more sense for me to say E is Shem rather than F being Shem. And haplogroup IJ, because we can't forget about J's brother I, is a human Y chromosome DNA haplogroup, an intermediate descendant of haplogroup IJK, formerly known as haplogroup F-L15. The intermediate descendants of IJ are haplogroup I and haplogroup J. Haplogroup I, by the way, is seen in mostly Germanic, Indo-European peoples. It's in Northern Europe. That's haplogroup I. Its sole sibling is K, which includes most of the world's male population. So, again, I just follow what the data says. Haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic, and haplogroup J/FM89 lineages adopted Semitic from haplogroup E. But you can't get mad at me for what the data says. I just follow the data. which leads me to my next point about what you keep messaging me about the Natufians, because you keep sending this over and over again. I believe your Natufian model is wrong. Let me explain why I believe in the Natufian model, because I don't think you understand why I even believe it, first of all. Because I follow what the scientists say about the Natufians. The Natufians are believed to be the ancestors of Semites. The Israelites are Semites. Therefore, the ancestors of the Israelites could literally be the Natufians. If the ancestors of the Israelites are Natufians, then the Israelites would have haplogroup E. It's that simple. That's what I see. This is from Godfrey C. and it reads, there is no meaning to say that E or E1B1B is an African haplogroup. Haplogroups don't have continental markers attached, especially when they originated near continental boundaries. E1B1B originated in Ethiopia roughly 50,000 years ago, but it crossed into the Arabian Peninsula about 22,000 years ago, and then became the dominant haplogroup of Proto-Semitic and Semitic peoples in Western Asia. That's haplogroup E. It became the dominant haplogroup of Proto-Semitic and Semitic peoples in Western Asia. It was the dominant haplogroup of the Natufian culture of the Levant in Asia, with the Jewish diaspora starting around 1,900 years ago. E1B1 was carried to multiple parts of Europe and Asia. The total number of carriers in Europe and Asia exceeds the number of carriers in Africa by far, making it more of a Eurasian haplogroup if any geographic label applies. And this is the area of Natufian culture, stretching from the Negev all the way to upper Mesopotamia. It was a very large range of land. So this is from In Hot Pursuit of Language and Prehistory, and it reads, this paper makes an additional inference, since there is archaeological and physical anthropological reason to believe that the Natufians were related to modern Semitic-speaking peoples of the Levant. Let me read that part again. The Natufians were related to modern Semitic-speaking peoples of the Levant. This is why I propose of Natufians being Semites, because I read it from a paper. That's why I say it. Such a scenario would also explain the presence of Y chromosome haplogroup E in the Natufians and Levantine farmers, a common link between the Levant and Africa. So if the ancestors of Semites are Natufians and Natufians had haplogroup E, then therefore the Semites would have haplogroup E. That's from Paleolithic DNA from the Caucasus reveals core of West Eurasian ancestry. This is from Cambridge, and it reads, given the modern distribution of Semitic languages over the area in question, which belong to the larger Afro-Asiatic family, it seems appropriate to suggest that these first farmers of the Levant and their Mesolithic predecessors, including the Natufian culture, were speaking a Proto-Afro-Asiatic language. It may be that Proto-Semitic continued to develop within the Levant and Syria area, since both Ebulites and Akkadian early Semitic languages are there attested early, the former around 2400 BC. And by the way, Akkadian is actually one of the oldest Semitic languages. Akkadian is the oldest. And this reads, the most plausible candidates for Semitic remigration to the Fertile Crescent with TURCAs fitting the arrival of the Akkadians and other early Semitic peoples are certain subclades of both E-V22 and E-V12 with relatively early TURCAs present in the Middle East could be candidates for such remigration, such as E-FGC14382 TURCAs 2200 BCE and E-FV3262 TURCAs 2600 BCE. That was from How Eurasia Was Born. All this information and plenty more leads me to the conclusions that Shem to Abraham and the Israelites would have haplogroup E. Furthermore, I don't believe they would have genetically been any different than other Afro-Asiatic populations. Here is a map showing Semitic languages, and there is a map showing people with Natufian ancestry. Highest amount of Natufian ancestry is in the Middle East. And here is a chart showing the specific people groups with highest amounts of Natufian ancestry. And here's a map showing people groups who have Natufian ancestry, but also happen to have high amounts of haplogroup E. So the people in Yemen who have a very close genetic relatedness to the Natufians have haplogroup E at 25 to 50%. And as you can see down below is a Y heat map of uh, haplogroup E samples, and we see it, as it says, in Yemen and on the western portion of the Arabian Peninsula, in the center of the Arabian Peninsula, all the way to southern Iraq. So there's the Yemeni. And then when it comes to Berbers and Libyans and Bedouins and Tunisians and Moroccans, etc., they are the next population with a very close relatedness to the Levant Natufians, and they also have high amounts of haplogroup E. Moroccan Berbers have 75% haplogroup E, Ashkenazi 18%, Sephardim 30%, and Berbers 89% and such. And Sahrawis at 82%, Algerians at 65%, Tunisians at 55%. So we do see a high amount of haplogroup E among these populations, but also we see that they happen to be very close genetically to Levant Natufians. Then the next portion is the Palestinians, Jordanians, and Samaritans. And as I covered before, Samaritan Levites who have 100% haplogroup E. And then Arabs in Egypt, Arabs in Palestine, and Arabs in the Jordan have around 31% to 62% of haplogroup E, and they are the next population who are closest to the Levant Natufians. And then we have again Tunisian Jews and Moroccans and Algerians and Libyan Jews and Moroccans and Sahrawi and Mozabites. They have the next portion, highest proportion of Levant Natufian ancestry. And as you can see, Moroccan Arabs have 70% of haplogroup E, and Berbers have like 85% of haplogroup E. Tunisian Jews have 20%. Libyan Arabs 50%. Libyan Jews at 26%. So you do see a very interesting parallel between populations bearing haplogroup E and populations genetically closest to Natufians, all of which are typically Afro-Asiatic populations. And this is why I say that when it comes to Shem and specifically Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the Israelites, they would genetically be no different than other Afro-Asiatic populations. Here's Afro-Asiatic map, and here is Natufian ancestry, and here is haplogroup E, and I believe that they'll be pretty much no different. So the ancient Israelites would be a typical Afro-Asiatic population. And I can go deeper into this, but I already went deeper in my older videos. However, with that being said, I have other models for the origins of Semites. You always speak of the Natufian model in the comments, but that's not the only one I have. There's technically even an African origin of Semites as well. If you believe in an old Earth, then Semites would quite literally be Africans. Again, this is not me saying this. I follow what the scientists say, what academia says, and what the evidence leads to. The reading what's in red, it's going to deal with the North African origin of Semites. The Semitic family is a member of the larger Afro-Asiatic family, all of whose other 5 or more branches have their origin in North Africa or the Maghreb. Largely for this reason, the ancestors of Proto-Semitic speakers were originally believed by some to have first appeared in the Middle East from North Africa, possibly as part of the operation of the Saharan pump around the late Neolithic. So Semites could have came from North Africa. Dinkoff sees Semitic originating between the Nile Delta and Canaan as the northernmost branch of Afro-Asiatic, so in green, Semites could have came basically from northeast Africa, in between the Nile Delta and Canaan. And in blue, Bench even wonders whether the highly divergent Goreg languages indicate an origin in Ethiopia, with the rest of Ethiopic Semitic a later back migration. So there's even a Horn of African or Ethiopian origin of Semitic people. So that's very, very fascinating. Uh, Leon Lee Bennett in 1995 proposed a scenario upon linguistic grounds wherein Semitic languages originated in Ethiopia and crossed the Red Sea. And as you can see right here, the Afro-Asiatic homeland and the root of Semites, Proto-Semites, they would have originated in the Horn of Africa or Ethiopia and crossed the Red Sea either through Yemen or through the Sinai Peninsula. And here's another chart that shows it. You have the homeland of Afro-Asiatic and the Horn of Africa, and then Afro-Asiatics go up here, and they get basically basically near Sinai. And you have the northern Afro-Asiatics, and then Semites would have crossed through Sinai into the Middle East, specifically into the Levant, and then the rest of the part of the Middle East, and they came from Africa. And then here is a paper dealing with the origins of Afro-Asiatics, and it reads, this extensive, well-grounded linguistic research places the Afro-Asiatic homeland in the southeastern Sahara or adjacent Horn of Africa. Dinkoff does revise his common Semitic homeland, moving it from solely within Northeast Africa to areas straddling the Delta and Sinai, but continues to place the other 5 branches origins wholly in Africa. Archaeological data suggests a pre-food producing population movement from Africa into the Levant, consistent with the linguistic arguments for a pre-Neolithic migration of pre-Proto-Semitic speakers out of Africa via Sinai. So here is a map displaying where these Proto-Afroasiatics and Proto-Semites would have been, also known as Afro-Sans, as we covered earlier, and they would have been on this the eastern part of the Sahara, and then they would have crossed through Sinai into the Middle East. So again, an African origin of Semites. And then you have the North African origin. This is from this book is Semitic Languages, Outline of a Comparative Grammar, and it reads, this implies that the speakers of Proto-Semitic were still dwelling in Africa in the 5th millennium BC, in the Neolithic sublume, circa 5500 through 3500 BC, when the Sahara's climate was much wetter, so that erosion took place, as in other moist, temperate, or subtropical regions, and there was a proper system of rivers and vegetation consisting of grass with trees. A worsening of environmental conditions is indicated in North Africa circa 3500 BC. With disappearance of vegetation, a major faunal break, desertification, and desertion, this might have been the period when the speakers of Proto-Semitic passed through the Nile Delta from the west to the east and reached Western Asia, where written documents of the 3rd millennium BC preserve noticeable traces of pre-Semitic, and in Mesopotamia also of pre-Sumerian substratum. Thus, from North Africa, wave after wave of Semitic migrations would seem to have set forth. The earliest of these migrants, and those who went furthest to the east, were the Akkadians, who, journeying along the Fertile Crescent through Palestine and Syria, and crossing over into Mesopotamia, reached northern Babylonia circa 3000 BC, and founded the first Semitic empire at Kish. And even if you look at the latest origins for Semitic languages and people, the Bayesian phylogenetic analysis, it says that the ancestors of Semites came out of Africa and settled in the Levant. This paper, the Bayesian phylogenetic analysis of Semitic languages, identifies an early Bronze Age origin of Semitic in the Near East, and it reads, these results indicate that the ancestor of all Semitic languages in our dataset was being spoken in the Near East no earlier than approximately 7,400 YBP, after having diverged from Afro-Asiatic in Africa. And here is the chart that shows it. Map of Semitic languages and inferred dispersals. The map also presents the dispersal of Semitic languages inferred from our study, and origin of Afro-Asiatic along the African coast of the Red Sea. Here it is right here, the origin of Afro-Asiatic right here. Supported by comparative analysis is indicated in red, although other African origins of Afro-Asiatic have been proposed, Southwest Ethiopia as an example. The assumed location of the divergence of ancestral Semitic from Afro-Asiatic between the African coast of the Red Sea and the Near East is indicated in italics. Here it is right here. Ancestral Semitic would have been basically, as they said, in between the African coast of the Red Sea and the Near East. So there, so you go from Afro-Asiatic to ancestral Semitic to Proto-Semitic in the Levant. So we used Bayesian phylogenetic methods to elucidate the relationships and divergence dates of Semitic languages, which we then related to epigraphic and archaeological records to produce a comprehensive hypothesis of Semitic origins and dispersals after the divergence of ancestral Semitic from Afro-Asiatic in Africa. We estimate that Semitic had an early Bronze Age origin in the Levant, followed by the expansion of Akkadian into Mesopotamia. And even this book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, by Jared Diamond, even talks about the African origins of Semites. He says Greenberg determined that Semitic languages really form only one of 6 or more branches of a much larger language family, Afro-Asiatic. Even the Semitic subfamily itself is mainly African, 12 of its 19 surviving languages being confined to Ethiopia. This suggests that Afro-Asiatic languages arose in Africa and that only one branch of them spread to the Near East. Hence, it may have been Africa that gave birth to the languages spoken by the authors of the Old and New Testaments and the Quran, the moral pillars of Western civilization. And then we have a conversation with Christopher Ehret, who even says, after all, the early Semites were just a few Africans arriving to find a lot of other people already in the area. Again, early Semites, just a few Africans. Again, I'm just following the data. I'm not making anything up. Everything I say is backed up by academia. I'm starting to believe that you don't like my information. I think that's why there's such a pushback between you and I. It's because you don't like the information that I have. And because of this, you're behaving extremely hypocritically. You said, in my Ashkenazi and, oh, not Ashkenazi, excuse me. You said in my Ashkenaz and Togorma video that basically you've never seen people apply biblical characters to haplogroups because in my video, I said that Ashkenaz is haplogroup I and Togorma is haplogroup J. But you claim that nobody does this. This isn't research. You said, I've never seen this type of research before, to be honest. You mix legend that is attributed to one man and which is easily proven to be historically inaccurate with DNA. And you run with this as your premise and as the foundation for your claims. And again, this is from the Togorma and Ashkenaz video where I say Ashkenaz would have been haplogroup I, the ancestor of Germanic peoples, and Togorma would have been haplogroup J, the ancestor of Caucasian peoples. And he says people don't do this. Like no one applies a haplogroup to a biblical character, basically. So let's just be straight and real. You have literally done this multiple times throughout many videos, all throughout my comment section. You have stated more than once that you believe biblical Jacob, whom some people believe to be a myth and not a historically real person, you have claimed that the biblical Jacob, and you have used research to say that Jacob was haplogroup J. And I literally have you saying this. You say in my The Origins of Haplogroup J video, you say, this is great, and it proves my point that Jacob was haplogroup J. I'm going to use this exact same studies in my report so that we are both in agreement in terms of where haplogroup J originated from. Interesting. So basically what I did with Togarma and Ashkenaz is the same thing you're going to do with the biblical Jacob. But you can do it, but I can't do it. It's not real research. I do it, but you can do it. Got it. Okay. You say again in the Yemnaya culture video, either way, it wouldn't change my POV, my personal, excuse me, not personal, my my point of view that Jacob was J. Again, either way, it wouldn't change my POV, my point of view that Jacob was J, haplogroup J. I just go by the facts as I see them. And I literally said the same thing. I go by the facts as I see them. And you say right here, the Armenians, you say literally in my video dealing with Armenian Proto-Indo-European origins, you say the Armenians are a mix of Semitic people and Indo-Europeans. They are a mixture between the Semitic branch of the Armenians are from the scattered northern Israelite tribes who got merged into other groups. They then had to adopt the Indo-European language. And all of that is empirically false because the Armenian genome was founded in the Bronze Age. The Israelites aren't a Bronze Age population. The Israelites are an Iron Age population. And furthermore, that's not part of Armenian mythology or history or genetics. This video right here literally details, and several other videos details, the literal genetic makeup and origin of Armenians. They are not Israelites. They are not Semitic. The Armenians predate the Israelites. They're a Bronze Age population, and you're using, myth and stuff, and you're saying that I can't use it. That right there would technically be classified as a myth. So you literally do, you literally do what you claim I shouldn't do. That's hypocritical, and people do this all the time by putting haplogroups to biblical characters, by applying a haplogroup to a biblical character. People do that all the time. I don't know why you're saying that you've never seen this. That happens all the time. Jews, Christians, Muslims, everybody does it. And I'm going to use another example that's literally from my comment section of someone doing it. So I'm going to use this person down here, this person, because even he is hypocritical in his statement because he's agreeing with Hebrewisraelism, and he says, I get what you are saying. It's like saying that Zeus is the progenitor of haplogroup E-V13 of the Balkans because of how the mythical gods were brought to Greece through language and culture. But this person right here with the Hebrew letters literally is going to contradict himself by using haplogroups and applying them to biblical characters by using myths and traditions. So here's how we're going to do this. So the person who commented under your post, Hebrewisraelism, literally did the exact same thing by applying a haplogroup to a biblical person, and they didn't even realize it, which is interesting. That goes to show you that when I show you how they contradict themselves, literally in the same comment section of the video, that to me indicates that some people just don't like my information, just want to go against me at all costs, no matter what they're saying or how much sense it makes. So I asked them biblically, who do you believe is haplogroup R? And then the person right here says, Japheth without a doubt. So you already applied a biblical person to a haplogroup. Ironic. The Roman Empire were R-M269. They are descendants of Japheth. Armenians know they descend from Japheth. Armenians are R1B1. It's interesting because this person's saying that Armenians are descendants of Japheth, but then Hebrewisraelism says that Armenians are a mix of Semites and Indo-Europeans. So there's even some contradictory evidence within these people's thought process. But starting over here, I says Japheth is a bit broad though. Which son or grandson of Japheth would Haplogroup R belong to? And then he says, not convinced. Tarshish are descendants of Javan. Javan is of Japheth. Then I say, so you would posit Tarshish or Javan as Haplogroup R? Question mark. Yes. Yes, the Sea people carried a R-M269 to Israel as a Canaanite nobility. And then I say, interesting. I have a different opinion on Haplogroup R biblical origin, but that's kind of interesting. What made you come to that conclusion? Any oral history or traditions of Haplogroup R being among Balkan peoples? And then they say Afghanistan. When we searched for proof of Greeks in Afghanistan, they found R1A and R1B, not E-V13. That part, by the way, is just false. We did find E-V13. Yes, there are Afghanis with R1A and R1B, but Haplogroup E is also in Afghanistan too. I don't know why he said that. Anyways, then they say Josephus, Magog to Gomer. Josephus refers to Magog, son of Japheth, as progenitor of Scythians, which guess, I guess it means to say, which guess what haplogroup the Scythians carried, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 6. So interesting, he's using mythology or tradition to apply a haplogroup to a modern population, then that modern population to an ancient population, then that ancient population to a biblical descendant, doing the exact same thing. But wouldn't that mean, according to oral myth, I literally say it, wouldn't that mean, according to oral myth, and applying that tradition to science, that Magog is haplogroup R, not Javan? And then he says, that is what Jewish Josephus said. He would know more than any of us. For Gomer founded for Gomer founded those whom the Greeks now call Galatians, Gals, but were then called Gomerites. Magog founded those that from him were named Magogites, but who are by the Greeks called Scythians. And I didn't want to read all of it, but basically, he's using a tradition, a oral account, a myth, if you will, to apply haplogroup R to a descendant of Japheth. He says, guess which haplogroup the Thracians were. I'm assuming you're going to say haplogroup R. Then he says, according to genetics of Scythians, yes, they were haplogroup R1B. And then he says, how about the Cimmerians, descendants of Gomer? So he even connects the Cimmerians to the descendants of Gomer. And I said haplogroup R as well. And he says, no doubt about it. 100 emoji. And then I say, I can rock with that. I came to similar conclusions using a similar model, applying the Bible with oral tradition / mythology to history, and lastly to science and the biblical sons of Noah. I agree that Magog is haplogroup R. Makes sense. So both of you are hypocritical for saying I can't do something that clearly you're doing. But like I, asked before, you make the point that in your paper you're not going to misrepresent me, but you're already doing that because you're choosing to not understand my points. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by when I say that you are choosing to not understand my points? How do you choose this? Because you haven't even watched my old videos where my points are made. Therefore, you literally said that your goals are to debunk me. That's also another important reason. You literally said that you're just going to debunk me. So my goal is to debunk all this Israelite stuff, and this isn't even really Israelite stuff. Like I'm just reading papers. But anyways, I do have I do have to do my best to debunk the Yap Gang's DNA claims, simply because it has become the most cited proof these days to support Israelite claims, i.e., that Jacob and the Israelites were haplogroup E. And again, that's just simply not true. Again, many scientists before my YouTube channel came into existence have said that Proto Semites had haplogroup E, Afroasiatics had haplogroup E. This would include Jewish people, since they are Semites, since they are Israelites, that they too have haplogroup E, and therefore the Israelites could likely have haplogroup E. Like, this isn't even nothing new. Like, saying that my YouTube channel is like, you're almost making it seem like it's revolutionary and that it's like changing the world, and everyone's saying that the Israelites are E because of it. Like, no, no. These papers, these books, these scientists have been saying Afroasiatic and Proto-Semitic is haplogroup E long before my YouTube channel has existed. I'm just quoting what they're saying. So that part is just, you're blowing things out of proportions here. And by the way, saying that you want to debunk people and that you must debunk people is not how peer review works. Okay, that's not how peer review works. That is completely the opposite, and bias and agenda heavy. They're supposed to, if you're going to do a peer review paper, you're supposed to just follow the data. A person who is peer reviewing isn't supposed to just debunk people because they don't like them. That's that's obviously just not how you do things. The data literally shows that haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic, like I read many times, and that haplogroup J and other markers adopted Semitic, and if haplogroup E is Proto-Semitic, that is likely the haplogroup of the ancient Israelites. If we're going with the idea that the Israelites are a Semitic people, that they descend a direct paternal line to Shem, and then logically haplogroup E would be the way to go about things. Peter Solomon Kavusks says, my theory is that when the Proto-Semitic language left the Afroasiatic homeland of Northeast Africa, not just one lineage left, but a group of Proto-Semitic people from this region that included all the Y-DNA haplogroups then present in Northeast Africa. It is possible that Northwest Semitic Hebrew people and languages dispersed into the Levant from Northeast Africa's now region around 5000 BCE. Thus, the earliest out of Africa settlement of Proto-Semitic people was likely in Yemen on the southeastern region of the Arabian Peninsula. They then spread to the east and northeast to enter Mesopotamia and founded the Semitic Empire of Akkad and the Akkadian Empire. Akkadians, by the way, are the first Semites. The very earliest Semitic language is Akkadian. In this group, many of us conclude that haplogroup E is one of the major founding haplogroups of the Semitic people, and that haplogroup E people were the ones who brought Proto-Semitic language out of the Afroasiatic homeland in Northeast Africa into the Levant and Mesopotamia. Again, Proto-Semitic, haplogroup E, following what they say. But from what I see is that you are incredibly biased, Hebrewisraelism. So, I could be E too, or have some African genes. Either way, it wouldn't change my POV, my point of view, that Jacob was J. I just go by the facts as I see them. Well, I read you the facts. I read you all the facts, and you claim you go by the facts. If you truly go by the facts, all facts lead to haplogroup E being Proto-Semitic, being Semitic, being Israel. But you said that you wouldn't change your POV and you'll still believe that Jacob was J. That's bias. That's not going by the facts. That's going off of personal interpretation. All I gotta say is, do you really go by the facts? E-M215 and E-M35 are quite common among Afro-Asiatic speakers. The linguistic group and carriers of E-M35 lineage have a high probability to have arisen and dispersed together from the Afro-Asiatic homeland amongst populations with an Afro-Asiatic speaking history. A significant portion of Jewish male lineages are E-M35, haplogroup E-M35, which accounts for approximately 18 to 20% of Ashkenazi and 8.6% to 30% of Sephardi Y chromosomes, appears to be one of the major founding lineages of the Jewish population. The biggest and most important Samaritan family, the Cohen family tradition tribe of Levi, was found to belong to haplogroup E. The Laura rabbinical lineage has one of the oldest family trees in the world, claiming to trace back to King David, trace back at least to King David, born circa 1037 BC. The predicted haplogroup to which the two peregrine Laura descendants belong is E-M35. I conclude by saying this. Anything I say is backed by science. I don't just make claims without any academic papers to back it up, to back up what I'm saying. And Hebrewisraelism, you are and have misrepresented me. But hopefully this video shows you why I believe what I believe, backed up by not my words, but by science. If you truly want to make a good report, then you should at least know my position. Also, you should have patience and wait for my information to come out because I'm not even fully done explaining my points yet. When people write peer-reviewed papers, they actually have to wait for the other person to fully make their own paper. I'm not even close or finished. More videos are on the way. New videos every week. Fridays at 6 or sometimes maybe 7, but keeping it at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Also, I know you want to debunk me in your report. Just keep this in mind as well. You will be debunking scholars in the field of genetics and anthropology that have been researching this for years, like Leon Bennett, Christopher Ehret, S.O. Wakita, Paul Newman, Andrew Lancaster, Edward Lelimsky, Peter Solomon Kavoskas, Harold C. Fleming, Christopher G. Turner II, Peter Bellwood, Jared Diamond, Alexander Mitover, and many others. Many others that I've quoted, but I'm not going to put them all down because it'll take a while. All these academic researchers say Afroasiatics and Semites had haplogroup E, not J. Or they say that Semites came from Africa and that they're Africans, or they say that Semites are descendants of Natufians, all of which would have had haplogroup E. Again, I follow what the academics say, not my emotions or my beliefs when it comes to the origins of Semites academically. But hopefully, again, this kind of brings everything together, catches you up to speed to a certain extent. Like I said, I only quoted a few of my sources because if I quoted all of my sources on what I believe, this would be like a 10-hour video. I'm not going to do a 10-hour video. You can go back and see my older videos, and you can wait for new videos to come out as well because I'm always updating things. I'm always, bringing out new information. So hopefully this kind of gives you a good idea to a certain extent. So this is where I end the video. Hopefully everyone has a great day. And with all of that out of the way, shalom.